What if the stones beneath your feet were bones? What if the mountains were not monuments, but tombs? This is not a poem about beauty. It's a poem about the weight of the forgotten. Pablo Neruda didn't climb Macchu Picchu to take a photo. He climbed to look for the hands that built it, the hands that history erased. This is not a love poem. It's a resurrection. The year was 1943. Neruda was no longer the young poet of heartbreak, no longer the boy who wrote about love that burns or exile that scars. By then, he had become something else, the poet of humanity, a man who had seen too much death, too much hunger, too much injustice. Europe was drowning in World War II. Fascism had turned entire countries into graveyards, and Latin America stood trembling, caught between colonial ghosts and modern wounds that refused to heal. And so, Neruda climbed Macchu Picchu, a city in the clouds, a staircase carved into the spine of the earth. But he didn't come for the view. He didn't come for the postcard. He came to search for the bones beneath the stone, the hands behind the monuments, the invisible lives that carried the world, but were never invited to live in it. And what he found there was devastating. Because here's the brutal truth Neruda uncovered. Every monument is also a tomb. Every palace, every temple, every city you've ever admired stands on broken backs, on hands that bled, on voices that were never allowed to speak. And that's when the poem began. Not fully, not yet, but the seed was planted. The heights of Macchu Picchu would later become the beating heart of his greatest work, Canto General, published in 1950. A book not about kings, not about conquerors, but about the invisible, the forgotten, the hands that built the world and were erased by it. Because Neruda understood something most people spend their whole lives running from. Everything you call civilization was built on someone's broken body. And poetry, real poetry, is not decoration. It is not beauty. It is a shovel, a tool to dig memory out of the dirt, to resurrect the nameless, to give voice to the bones beneath our feet. And maybe that's the most sacred thing anyone can do, to look down, to listen, and finally see who held us up.
Then on the ladder of the earth I climbed, through the atrocious thicket of lost jungles, up to you, Macchu Picchu. High city of stones, staircase of the earth, the spine of the sky, when the sacrificial twilight fell on your knees, mother of stone, foam of the condors, high reef of the human dawn. When the tangle of thorns had no door for my steps, there you were, Macchu Picchu. Tall city of stepped stones, where the air lasted like a cry, where the wind carved the shape of the scream in the silence of feathers and clay. You, cradle of lightning, you, bread of stone, you, grave of time. From each house, each invisible step, I touched the emptiness left by bodies. I searched for the dead. I searched for the bones. I searched for the light.
This is not about Macchu Picchu. It never was. It's about the hands that carved stone, but whose names were never carved anywhere. The hands that bled so others could admire beauty centuries later. It's about the brutal truth hidden beneath every monument, every building, every city you've ever walked through. Everything you call civilization was built by someone who was never invited to enjoy it. The bricklayers, the miners, the farmers, the women who carried stones while carrying children strapped to their backs. The hands that broke so the world could stand. It's about how every empire, every nation, every palace stands on invisible shoulders. And you, yes, you watching this, you walk on streets paved with bones. You live in houses built with erased hands. You breathe because someone else forgot how to. And maybe, climbing Macchu Picchu isn't about reaching the top. It's about learning to look down and finally see who held you up. Because that's what Neruda understood. That poetry isn't decoration. It's excavation. It's a shovel made of words. A tool to dig the forgotten back into the world. To unearth the nameless, the voiceless, the erased. Because here's the truth, most people spend a lifetime avoiding. For every monument that survived, there are 1,000 bodies that didn't. And maybe the most sacred thing you and I will ever do is remember. Not with history books, not with speeches, but with presence, with gratitude, with the terrifying awareness that every bite of food, every roof, every comfort you've ever known came from hands that the world chose to forget. So ask yourself now, whose hands built the world you live in? Whose stories were never told so yours could be? And what do we owe to the bones beneath our feet? Because when the mountain reveals its bones, when the silence of stone starts to speak, you realize that forgetting is the deepest crime of all. But what happens when forgetting isn't something history did to others, but something someone you love could do to you? In the next episode, we leave the mountain and step into exile, into a love haunted by distance, by silence, by the unbearable question, if you forget me, do I still exist? Pablo Neruda's If You Forget Me, coming next in Enlighten My Silence.